Hello everybody, my name is Isaac, and if you're interested in computers, or building things, or building computers, you're in the right place, because today we're going to get started on building a computer using this big pile of components you see in front of you. Now of course, as everyone knows, the first step to building a computer is to simply find a big pile of components, materialize behind it, and these components are guaranteed to be just the right components for you within your price range, and all compatible with each other. Wait, what do you mean that's not how it works? Are you telling me I had to actually buy all of this crap? So, if you're not a huge computer aficionado who already has your dream build sorted out, this is probably the most intimidating and actually the most challenging part of the build, simply picking out the parts that are right for you. So, how are we going to pick out those parts? Well, that is a problem, and whenever we have a problem, we go to YouTube and look up a video on how to solve it. We do not solve our own problems around here. We get YouTubers to solve our problems for us. That is what you are doing by watching this video. So let's go and do that.
Today I'm dealing with a topic that might not require much explaining to you DIY veterans out there, but for the novice or first-time PC builder, choosing the parts for a PC and ensuring they're all compatible with each other can be a daunting task.
Daunting. It's a daunting task.
So to make life a little easier for the young PC master race, I've decided to throw together the ultimate PC hardware compatibility guide.
Yes.
The first step is to make a list of parts on PCPartPicker.com and see if you pass the site's compatibility check. If it checks out, you're done.
Alright, easy. We're done. If we go to PCPartPicker.com. Simple. I don't know why we even needed to watch a video.
Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Wait. Hold on, let's back up. I decided to throw together the ultimate PC hardware compatibility guide. Now while a PC list making site like PC Part Picker already offers a built-in compatibility checker, after doing some research I found that such automated systems aren't always 100% accurate. So in order to thoroughly explain the vast network of PC part association, I've been working with a team of highly intelligent field mice to develop the Octagon of Compatibility. Here's what all the compatibility lines for every part looks like.
Okay, so obviously this isn't the end of the video, and I did go to PCPartPicker.com, and I did buy that gigantic pile of components you saw earlier, so I'll just briefly take you through the process. I know that your build is going to be much different from mine, your needs are going to be different from mine, but I'm just going to take you through the process that I used here to pick my components so that you can sort of see how it goes. Now you can see that the processor I'm starting with is the Threadripper 1950X, which is one of the high-end desktop processors from AMD. Now, I decided to go with a high-end desktop model because, I want this to last me a long time. I'm really going to put this computer through its paces. I'm going to do a lot of video editing, video recording, and things of that nature. So for the future, for several years, I'd like this to be sort of a very workable computer for my needs. Now, pretty early on, I decided that I was going to go with RGB everything, because this is, in addition to being a video recording and editing rig, it's also a gaming rig, and gaming rigs need to look fantastic. So this is why I decided to go with the RGB 240mm radiator liquid cooling system. I decided to only go with the 240mm radiator rather than the 360 because I'm not planning on doing any overclocking or anything ridiculous like that, and if I do decide to do something like that, I will probably simply upgrade the cooling system altogether with a custom liquid cooling solution. Now as for the motherboard, the choice was really between the ASRock motherboard and the Asus motherboard, both the high-end motherboards for this CPU. And what I decided to do to pick between them was I posted on the ASRock forums and the Asus forums and asking them why I should pick their respective motherboard. Now on the Asus forums, all I got was some Asus fanboy saying, cause it's Asus, lol. The ASRock forums were actually a little more interesting. I got someone who was an ASRock fanboy saying, oh, it's a good motherboard and it's better than the Asus motherboard. And then I got some people contradicting him saying, no, actually, the last ASRock motherboards were not as good as the Asus motherboards of that class. They weren't compatible with as many memory modules, there were more problems with the BIOS. So ultimately, because of that feedback, I decided to go with the Asus motherboard, despite its higher price tag. Next up is the memory. I decided to go with 32 gigabytes of memory, which should be plenty of memory for my needs for the foreseeable future, and if it isn't, the motherboard supports up to 128 gigabytes of memory. So I made sure to use 16 gigabyte modules since the motherboard has 8 DIMM slots, which will allow me to upgrade to the motherboard's maximum memory capacity in the future if need be. Naturally, of course, since this is our fancy looking gaming rig, I did get the RGB memory sticks from G.Skill. I decided to get 3600 MHz memory since that's the maximum speed of the motherboard's memory controller when it's overclocked. Now after memory comes storage, and I decided to get an M.2 drive for storage since it's the fastest storage available today. I was going to get a couple of terabyte sized Corsair drives, but then I realized that the Samsung 960 Pro is actually several times faster than the Corsair. So despite the Corsair's low price tag, I decided it was better for me to get 1 terabyte of the Samsung 960 Pro rather than the 2 terabytes of the Corsair drive. Now the next thing to pick is the video card, and this is an interesting question of price versus performance. Now for me, I sort of wanted to go all out and get maximal performance, so I decided to go with the GTX 1080 Ti, which is basically the second most powerful graphics card you can get after the Titan XP, which is absurdly expensive. So now that we've picked out most of our parts, we need a case to put them in, and I sort of fell in love with the BitPhoenix Aurora case, even though they sort of tricked me by showing the magnetic RGB strips in there that I thought were a part of the case. But nonetheless, I really like the tempered glass side panel, I like the front design, and I ended up putting RGB strips in there anyway, so nothing is lost in the end. Next up is the power supply, and this one I didn't put too much thought into. I just picked one that was 80 plus platinum certified and had pretty good ratings. And with that, we basically have the core build there. I added a few extra peripherals to mine. A monitor, of course, is required, but many people already have that. I added a sound card because I sort of care about audio quality, maybe a little bit more than most people do. And I got a keyboard since I've been using a laptop, I don't have an external keyboard, and I got a nice gaming mouse as well since I'm going to be using this to play a lot of Overwatch. And that is it, we now have all of our parts picked out, and now it's just a matter of ordering them and waiting for them to arrive at our doorstep. We did it! Alright, we finally have our pile of components and it's time to get started on the build. You'll notice I'm starting off here by putting on this anti-static wrist strap so that I don't shock any of my components, although admittedly I am putting it on a little bit preemptively since I'm not dealing with any electronic components right now. So I've removed the tempered glass side panel, and the first thing that I'm going to do is remove these drive cages because the only storage that I have is the M.2 drive that goes right onto the motherboard. Now that the case is prepared, it's time to unpack the motherboard and install all the components that attach to it directly. Or rather, those components that don't attach to anything else. Everything attaches to the motherboard in one way or another. The first thing we're going to do here is get started on installing the CPU, which has a very peculiar installation method specifically for the Threadripper. It goes into this little sliding mount that you then screw into place rather than actually slotting pins into little slots. I do notice something sort of odd right here, which is that these lower two screws don't seem to actually be screwed into anything right now, as if they're not quite long enough to catch in the screw holes. So I only need to unscrew the top one to release the latch. Now that the contacts are bare, it's time to unlock the power. Turns out unlocking the power is a little bit easier said than done. Alright, power unlocked. It's time to slide this thing into the mount and screw it into place. Now this part actually gives me a little bit of trouble because it feels like the screws are just barely long enough to catch in the threads, if long enough at all. Like, I can't even get these things in here. Now at this point I do manage to get the top screw to catch, but I still can't get the bottom two to catch. I'm sure it'll be fine. Now with the CPU installed, it's time to get started on installing the CPU cooler. Now this is all well and good, but look at that tiny patch of thermal paste on the contact there. I'm gonna have to run out to Best Buy to get some more. Looks like they have case fans here as well. That's good to know. Now I'm getting very confused about how to mount this thing to the CPU. I heard that the Threadripper itself came with a special mount, but I didn't see it anywhere, and I already threw out the packaging. There it is. But was it worth it? That is the question. I'm gonna say yes, just because I have a computer now. But your dumpster mileage may vary. Before actually mounting the CPU cooler, I decided it would be a little bit easier to add the memory and storage first. Make sure to check your motherboard's manual to know which DIMM slots to put the memory in, unless of course you're filling all of them. I recommend figuring out beforehand what you're going to do for screw management, because just putting all the screws into like a little cup is not necessarily the best strategy. Okay, with everything on the motherboard, it's time to mount the motherboard itself inside the case. Make sure to line up the back panel connectors with the back panel connectors slot on your case, and the screw holes with the standoffs in the case. Alright, this is a little bit better screw management now. Now I'm going to install the CPU cooler, which means mounting the fans on the radiator, mounting the radiator on the case, and then mounting the cooling system itself onto the CPU. You do need to decide whether you want to push air out of your case through the radiator or pull it into your case through the radiator. Pulling it in means that your CPU will get cooler air, however you need to balance that by having other fans be outputs where they would be inputs otherwise. After this, it's going to be time to actually connect everything to the fan controller and the motherboard, and I'm not quite sure how to do that, so I'm going to consult a YouTube video to see how that works. It's a nice beat. Okay, this part I know. Let's skip ahead. What's he doing now? I can't even see. Why is he going around to the back? Oh, he's installing the fan controller on the back side. That's all well and good. It's interesting, he's using that as a bracket for mounting the fan controller? Not clear. What? Does he even know what he's doing? This is really weird. Okay, well, let's skip ahead to where he actually plugged the fan controller in. Alright, great view we've got here. Oh, I shouldn't be talking. Aha! He's unpackaging the fan controller here. Alright, let's go. Take it out of the bag. Take it out of the bag, alright. He's having some problems. There it is. Alright. Wait. What happened? Another problem beautifully solved thanks to the magic of YouTube, and now we can carry on with our build. It's time to use that thermal paste we bought earlier and apply it generously to the surface of the cooling unit. The Threadripper is a very large CPU, so the tiny amount of thermal paste they had on there is probably not going to be optimal. Next up, we're going to install the power supply and plug in all of our components. Whoa, hold on. I just realized that we do not have enough fans in our case. We don't have any at all in the front of it, so time to go back out to Best Buy and get some of those fans that we saw earlier. I forgot my backpack. Let's try to shove this thing into my pocket. There we go. Since I bought a 3-pack of Ring RGB fans, I can replace the one in the back as well. Now we're getting all of our front panel connectors plugged in. It's a little tedious, but someone has to do it. Just look at all the labels and you'll be fine. Now I'm connecting the power supply to the motherboard. There's a 24-pin connector plus 2 8-pin connectors for the CPU. Alright, we've got power, we've got cooling. It's time to bring that audio-video experience to the table, installing the graphics card and the sound card. Putting a bit of work into cable management can help make your build a little bit tidier and just look a little bit nicer, especially when you've got that glass side panel. All of the internals are just visible to everyone. And that's it. It looks like we did it. So now I'm going to bring this over to my monitor, plug it in, hit the power button, but wait. I don't see anything on my monitor. Nothing happened. So this is a bit of a problem here, and I'm going to try to figure out what's going on, why it's not working, why nothing is showing up here. I'm a little worried. I checked the front panel connectors to make sure the power button's working, and just also checking to see if I'm using all the right cables for the power supply. And then I'm looking around and I find something I remember seeing earlier, which is actually this little microphone you plug into the motherboard. But alas, not a single status beep was heard. That is unfortunate. Based on the symptoms and after talking to ASUS customer service, I was convinced that the motherboard was the problem. It was a faulty motherboard. So now I'm disassembling the whole computer and reassembling it with a brand new motherboard. I just keep on losing screws under this little panel here. Still not managing to get these screws to catch. Building a computer is actually a lot faster the second time you do it, and no, it's not just because I'm making more jump cuts. Same thing as before. The backlighting of the motherboard is coming on, but the system isn't really powering on. Let's take another crack at getting all of those screws tightened properly, shall we? Turns out the real trick is to get all 3 of them to catch before any of them are screwed in completely. And with that, it's time for the ultimate moment of truth. We're going to power this thing on once and for all. Wow, we did it. That was quite a journey. Thank you for joining me on it. It turned out that the real problem was that the CPU was not installed correctly. Because those 2 screws were not holding down the CPU, not all of the pins were in contact with the contacts, meaning that the CPU was not working at all. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something from it in the process as well. I know I did. If you want to see this computer in action, you can check out my gaming channel, link in the description down below. And if you want to see the video where I mod my desk so that this computer will actually fit in it, make sure you hit subscribe so you won't miss that one. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I hope you all have a great day, and remember, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing badly.